Welcome in, guys. Holy shit. We have got our first fucking candidate here. And he is running for... Did you just fucking throw up?
Yeah, how can you tell?
Go ahead, Tim Mabry. What are you running for today?
Texas Lieutenant Governor.
All right. We're going to try to do what we can and get rid of that globalist piece of shit, Dan Patrick. Thank you for taking time to join us, honestly. I mean, I'm excited. Me and Dustin have been trying to get, more and more candidates on. Before we get started on all this, we're not here to say, hey, we're going to endorse you, or, hey, we're not going to endorse you. We just want to get to know you. We're going to ask some questions. We'll get to get a little bit of your background, and to just kind of put in our 2 cents of how we see about things. Me and Dusty, we're obviously pushing for Doc. Think he should be the next governor. One thing that me and him are always vocal on is neither one of us are Republican. Neither one of us are Democrat. We align with ourselves, independent thinkers, and we make judgments based off of what you tell us, what a candidate tells us, what they run on, what they stand for, and if their actions back it up on the campaign trail. I think it's all too obvious when you see too many politicians out there saying one thing, then act another. And to me and to us, that's the reason why we're in this shithole that we're now with the government on both state and the federal level. Dustin, anything to add?
I got a campaign slogan for you. You should put it on some banners. You should put it on some t-shirts, all of that. Visualize this. Greg Abbott in a wheelchair. And the shirt says, don't just roll through life. Stand for, and in the sounds of South Park, Timmy! All spelled out. Yeah,
God, dude.
It's amazing.
That's what
amazing.
That's what you spend time on coming up with.
Hey, so Tim, give us a little bit of background about you, a little bit about your upbringing, your life in the Navy, and going on into the fire service and beyond. What got you here today?
Well, thank y'all for having me on. And the name of the show is absolutely hilarious. Double penetration. But also what's kind of funny about a DP is that was my favorite shotgun. I had a DP-12 shotgun.
There you go.
So I was like, DP-12, all right. So that's kind of a funny thing. A little bit about me and my background. I've been serving the public since I was a kid. I've always been involved in something. So at the age of 3, I got involved in scouting. My brother is 2 years older than me, so he was a Tiger Scout. And I remember from the earliest ages going to scout meetings. And I remember starting at Tiger Cub. I've worked all the way up to being an Eagle Scout. So I've learned about leadership, development, and putting people first, and that there's always a greater mission and teamwork. You can't do anything by yourself, and there's always a team effort, and that we have to be actively engaged in the community.
Are you a Texas native from ground up, or are you integrated into Texas?
Well, I'm a Texas native from the ground up. I'm a
Perfect.
6th generation native Texan. Yeah, so my first relative that we can trace it back to guaranteed, she was born January of 1861. We don't know where the line starts, because on her death certificate, my great-great-great-grandmother says her parents were born in Texas, but we can't verify if they were born here. There's some conflicting info that looks like they may have been from, Tennessee, but I can at least guarantee that the first ancestor was born in 1861 here in Texas, around the Houston area. And that's just one line.
See, and that's great to hear, because, and here's my problem with, a lot of these races and all that. Too many times that we have individuals that are not Texan.
Let's preface that by political races, not races as a people.
You motherfucker.
He's like, God,
Hey, we're going to get into fucking racial shit later. That's neither here nor there. But hey, look, I love it that you're from Texas. Your family's from Texas. You are essentially through the lineage. And there's too many times that we're seeing many individuals that are coming from, I know in the congressional 38 district, we've got at least one individual that she was born in Venezuela and immigrated and all that. And honestly, my personal belief is I don't think that you should be able to be an immigrant and be your first generation here and be able to run for office in the
At any
United
level.
States. Yeah, at any level.
I agree with that.
Oh yeah, and a lot of people don't, but I truthfully do. But I think we need a better path to immigration regardless. It's really nice to hear that you're from here, your family's from here. That means you've got roots here. And that means you have a different type of
It's a
love for the
passionate,
state.
vested interest. Yeah.
Yeah, than some of these other politicians that we may see through some of these races. You know, it's not like Ted Cruz, who's a Canadian and, you know, partial
I
Cuban
still
and
can't understand how he ran for president. He's not fucking born here. Okay, but sorry, keep going.
yeah. Carry on.
You're good. And with growing up in San Antonio, you're right. I learned a lot about the Alamo. So for scouting, the scout district that I was a part of was the Alamo Area Council, and it consists of 13 counties around San Antonio. We were the Alamo Area Council, so we were deep into Texas history. We were deep into camping, hunting, being outside in the Texas woods. This is part of that background. So we understand that. And being where we were at, we spent a lot of time in the hill country and on farms and ranches out camping. So I've got to know and love native Texas land. We learned about Native American history as well. We go through that here. And it's one thing that I love about this is that for us in the culture, we got to see it from the ground up. We got to see it. Because you hear everyone says, oh, remember the Alamo. Well, if you're in different parts of Texas, you may not fully know what that means. You may not have fully seen it before the renovations.
I don't think a lot of kids nowadays who were born and raised in Texas understand what that truly means. They just they hear the saying, you know what I mean? It's like, don't mess with Texas, remember the Alamo. Okay, well, what do we remember the Alamo for? And they just look at you with a blank stare. And it's just that.
You know, and one of the shitty parts is I don't think that our education system in today's society is truly teaching our children about our Texas heritage and Texas history. Not like when we were kids and we had to go through it.
An actual Texas history class.
Yeah, I recently talked to my children about it. I've got a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old. You know, we discussed that, and both of them, when talking to them about Texas history, they're like, well, they don't really push on that. Which, you know, you stepping in and being a lieutenant governor, if you get to that mark, or when you get to that mark, you know, that is something that I think instilling back into the citizens and the children is pertinent. You know, we have to get that back into their head and give them a sense of pride so that we have the next generation of lieutenant governors and governors that follow the same path as, you know, individuals like yourself or Doc. So, okay, carry on.
Well, I'll touch on this. So one of my slogans that I've used is to deepen the heart of Texas. And it's not deep in like I-N, it's DEEPEN. Like you want to make it deeper. So we need to deepen the heart of Texas because we've lost that. I was at a Texas Music Educators Association conference this past weekend, and I was talking to some young students. I said, what's the big issue that we have? And they said, we're losing our culture. People don't know what it means to be a Texan. We have people coming here don't understand that. We're not being taught what it truly means to be a Texan. And to be a Texan is to be this almost badass type of mentality of, frankly, my dear, I don't give a fuck, or I don't give a damn. That's that type of mentality that we're going to disagree. We're going to fight it out. We're going to have a disagreement. But at the end of the day, we're going to put that aside and we're still going to be cordial with each other. We don't take offense. We have a disagreement. We fight it out. We're good friends again. That's how it's supposed to be. That is how Texas was. And if you look at the original way their Texas government was ran, did you know that they went to a bar and they would have bar fights over legislation?
Oh, yeah.
We need to bring that shit back. Oh, my God.
They had a battle royale. Like they had a fight. They would go.
A lot of people still get shocked. A lot of people still get shocked today, like people who are not from Texas, right? That mutual combat is a thing in Texas. People don't know that. And when I explain it to them, they're like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, it's a fucking thing. Like, as long as you're not using weapons or anything like that, like, and you're not impeding public or traffic, and you go out there, say mutual combat, the other person agrees, y'all fight it out. And a cop could watch you and you could tell the cop, hey, we agreed to mutual combat, and he can't do anything. That's a law.
But that's the mentality of Texas. And it's like the two finger, like on the steering wheel, like lifting it up. That's a sign of respect. When you go out to the rural communities, you still see that. And you can tell who's not from around there because that's one of those symbols. And you know very quickly, okay, that's person just driving through, or maybe I should be leery of them. But if you go into the rural types of communities, that's exactly what they still do because that is passed down from generation to generation to generation of people who understood the culture. So one of the initiatives that I want to do and I want to work with the next governor is to create that type of grassroots coalition to support that type of mentality across the board to say, look, we are Texas. We are badasses innately. When you look at World War II history, holy crap, you don't want to mess with Americans, let alone Texans, because we're going to come in and wreck shit up. Still, we have a select group of people who still retain that, but is quickly being replaced by Yankee carpetbaggers like Dirty Dan Patrick, who are coming in and saying, I'm going to DP y'all. Hell yes.
Dan Patrick.
Don't fuck with Texas.
But real quick, what's funny if you say that, like, you know, Texas, you know, Texans, like true Texans that carry that mentality, right? But the funny thing is like, that's what I want to say. Like the USA is known for two things. One, we're going to get in it anywhere we go. We're going to fuck shit up and, and leave. Two,
take
Texas.
Ass and take names.
Yeah. Texas.
Or fuck their names.
Because when I was stationed in England and everybody was like, hey, where you, like, you know, working with a bunch of local Brits on base, you know, hey, where you from? I'm like, Texas. Is like, oh, Texas. Yeah. Like they all had the same mentality. Like, you know, but if anybody else said from any other state besides like maybe California, you know, I was like, oh, is it sunny out there? Is it nice? Whatever. But like people say like Illinois, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like they don't care. But when you say Texas, that holds a different standard. And people don't realize like that type of pride that true, like Texas born through and through, raised and everything, and go through that knowing that, hey, we are from Texas. That fucking means something. And it's getting lost. And I've getting lost as the generations come through, and I've done everything, you know, for my son, you know, he's 13. But what's funny is like growing up, and when we were stationing, we went to on base school with the DOD English school, right? American school. Everybody was kind of like saying, well, he's probably going to come back with like a British accent because he was in that formidable years, was very like impressionable, right? Days he would come home, he would have like a deeper Texas West Southern accent. I'm like, where are you getting this from? Like nobody around you talks that way. I don't even talk that Southern. I mean, I'm telling you, like, but he my boy is Texas through and through, and he loves it. You know what I mean? And I think too many kids nowadays, as they're growing up, they're just not understanding what it really means to be a Texan, especially for the U.S.
Cussing, spitting, fighting cowboys. Not the Dallas Cowboys. Right. That's kind of gay, but real cowboys.
Well, you know what culture that we most assimilate, that we most resemble throughout history in Texas?
Who's that?
Sparta.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, definitely.
The Texas culture closely resembles and was modeled after the Spartan culture. That's how the Republic of Texas mentality was. It's closely resembled to that framework and operations of Sparta. And the same reason why Sparta fell is the same reason that we're fallen. It's because of an outside influence of how they did things now coming in and corrupting it. And that's where we're at. But when you hear Greece, okay, whatever. Athens, nah. Sparta. This is Sparta. You don't hear this is Greece. No. You hear freaking Roman Empire, Sparta, and the United States, it's freaking Texas.
Yeah. You want to kick a motherfucker in the chest.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's what we did at the Alamo. And that's what I'm telling people is not many people will answer the freaking call. And I actually answered that call last year. Are y'all aware that there was a threat on the Alamo last year?
I didn't hear about that.
So last year, a couple of days right before the No Kings protest, the first one in June, I'm on the way back from, I want to say it was Lufkin area. Anyways, I'm on the way back and I get a phone call. It's like, hey, bro, there's a credible threat about the Alamo, that there's a group of people who are threatening to take the Alamo back by force. And I thought that person was kind of crazy at first, but they said, no, this is legit. So I get home and I grab my bulletproof vest, which is a level 3+ plates. And then I put a pistol on with the white cowboy hat. Actually, just this outfit right here I'm wearing with the vest and a pistol. And as I'm driving there down into San Antonio, which is like an hour away from my house is the Alamo, from where I'm at right now. So as I'm driving down there, I call up a buddy of mine who's former intelligence, and he works at a gun shop close to downtown. And I ask him, hey, I received a tip that there's a threat on the Alamo. Is this legit? And he said, yes, this is a real, incredible threat. He's like, there is a team of us right now at this gun shop. We are prepared. If anyone fucks around, they're going to find out. And he's like, but we are here in case. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm on my way down there. So there was about 20 of us Texans who rallied to the Alamo armed and ready to go to defend the Alamo, because you don't come fuck with our state. You don't come screw with the Alamo. So Dan Patrick went on the news a few days later or the next day and said it was DPS troopers and it was the National Guard who was there. No. And he said there were no Texans. There weren't no actual citizens there. Like, bullshit. There were. There was 20 of us who went on our own volition after hearing the call that there was a threat. We showed up, not paid, not compensated, not forced. We showed up because that's the right freaking thing to do. And you had law enforcement in front of the Alamo around the perimeter. And us as citizens, we were roaming around the crowd. We were watching for additional threats. We were there. And we also went to support DPS if anything were to kick off. But we were in the midst of that. And
this is more and more of a reason why we need to really build the infrastructure and the funding for the Texas military. Our
Texas State Guard. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a freaking joke right now. That's a thing. Dusty, are y'all really familiar with the Texas State Guard and the crap that's being pulled in it right now?
I know of the organization. I don't know any of the inner workings of what's going on right now.
All right. Now, let me ask you this question. When you hear the Texas State Guard, what do you think?
For a while, to be honest, because I didn't know there was a difference between the Texas State Guard and the National Guard for Texas until at a certain point when I was actually looking of going active duty to guard at one point, and then I learned about the Texas State Guard. But from what I have looked at, seems like it's like it's supposed to be like almost like a paramilitary militia type thing, specifically for the state that has no control outside of the state. Like when the state National Guard could get federalized, quote unquote, if DC chooses, where the State Guard is only for Texas, point blank period, has no control outside of the state.
Now, Dusty, you pulled out a gun. Actually, you pulled out a beautiful firearm. But I'm going to tell you something. The Texas State Guard does not have their own armory. They are not allowed to carry their own guns.
I thought they had any weapon that was associated with it was privately owned.
I mean, it is privately owned, but it's not issued by the state, is what I mean.
Yeah, correct.
So it's not, when I say it's not their gun, it's they have to get permission to carry and be armed by the National Guard. They have to go to the National Guard armory. So when they
have their guns on loan is what you're saying.
Yes, that they have to ask permission from the National Guard to get it.
Yeah, and apparently I saw something about it has next to no funding. Like the funding of it is absolute dog shit. It's kind of like an afterthought. It's like, okay, if y'all want to do this little, militant club, go ahead. Like, which I think is
it's the Texas Neighborhood Watch, essentially.
Yeah, we're an awkward people who aren't really paid well, who aren't very well trained like they're supposed to be, and is run by a bunch of drunk good old boys, from what I'm being described. You have a bunch of circle jerk officers in the top ranks who will stroke each other off just for fun, and they fuck everybody else over. This is what our Texas State Guard is. What we need to do, my partial vision, and this is where it aligns with Doc Chambers. Doc Chambers and I get along very well with this mentality of want to rebuild the State Guard to make it the governor and the lieutenant governor's military. Because under our state constitution, if anybody in the nation or the world wants to F around and find out, our governor can intervene. And my job as lieutenant governor was to help assist that. To say, okay, hey, we're having an imminent threat. Let's activate the State Guard, make them an elite fighting unit that is combat ready, that is more advanced than the National Guard. That we have our own special forces and that we have our own intelligence. And I want to create an Air Force division and a Navy. We need to make the State Guard like our own military, like it once was, so that this way we can do anti-human trafficking. We can do all of these things on a global scale to protect citizens of Texas. Hey, if a cartel member or someone, a Texan gets kidnapped in another country, we can go and do it ourselves. Activate our own state guard. Go and take care of that. We can do that under our Constitution because we are supposed to be able to protect our own. We don't need the federal government for shit. We can do it ourselves.
So if we had an individual that was kidnapped by a cartel and taken over lines, I thought federal statute would prohibit us from going over and retrieving that individual. Isn't that correct?
According to the Texas Constitution, we can go and intervene as long as it's to protect Texas interest and our people.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's where the beauty of separation of federal and state, church and state. We're not talking about church.
I know.
Federal and state.
I'm still thinking about last night. I'm sorry. I'm still fucking pissed.
Chill.
So I got a sidebar question. Do we still have the "Don't Mess with Texas" signs throughout Texas?
Yes.
You as lieutenant governor, can you go in there and take every one of those fucking signs out and replace them with a picture of Texas, and it just has a big ass Texas on it? It says FAFO.
We'd have to do legislation to do that, but we could push that.
I think we need to get back to that badass Texas mentality. Get every other state afraid of us. Get the cartels afraid of us.
So here's the funny thing, Dustin. We have those to say "Don't mess with Texas," right? You see it coming in from like I saw it when I was coming in from Oklahoma last night because we went to Windstar for my daughter's birthday. But the funny thing is that "Don't mess with Texas" is not the official slogan of Texas. Dustin, do you know what the official slogan of Texas is? Tim, do you know off the top of your head?
He's have to look it up.
He's looking it up.
On the top of my head, I
it's
don't know
one word. It's one word.
That's right. Fucking friendship.
Yeehaw.
Friendship.
We all thought it was
official. That's the official slogan of Texas.
Don't mess with Texas.
Friendship. Yeah.
That is gay.
Exactly. Tim, I need you to run on that as your number one issue. The number one issue is get the official slogan to be "Don't mess with Texas." That's your number one issue from now on because the friendship slogan is bullshit. That's not how Texas should be looked at. We're not your fucking friends. You come in, you treat us good, cool. You can have a beer, you can eat some barbecue. But don't fuck with us. That's what we are. Don't mess with Texas. Yeah. Friendship is bullshit. And it's been around since 1930, apparently. That's stupid.
Okay, we got way off topic. Okay, so you're Eagle Scout. Let's fast forward a little bit. You went in the Navy. What was your MOS?
So I listened to a recruiter, and I went in undesignated.
So did I.
And I struck for hull tech.
What does that do exactly?
So hull technician, you do pipe fitting, plumbing, metallurgy, welding, and damage control, training, firefighting issues. So in essence, if someone blows up put the hole in the ship, your job is to patch up the holes, stop the fires, pump the water out, and do basic repairs. And do critical repairs.
I'm a hull tech in my personal life.
Shut up, bitch. That falls along like how for Air Force we call those civil engineers. They kind of do that kind of stuff. Like civil engineering is like a catch-all for like electricians, plumbers, metal guys, and stuff like that for just basic infrastructure. So yeah, okay, cool. That makes kind of sense. That makes sense. How long were you in?
So I did a little bit less than 2 years.
Okay. And then when you got done with that, what'd you do after? Did you go straight to firefighting, or did you come out and do something else?
So I went straight to firefighting. So just to make y'all aware, because I'm very transparent with what goes on. Because people question it. So the reason I was in for less than 2 years is because when I got put out to my ship, I was put in a division that my chief petty officer, which is an E7, would take me in the bowels of the ship because I didn't know certain tools. And I got beaten with tools repeatedly. So that's how I learned what an open end of a closed end, which were the box end of a wrench was. And it wasn't the small ones. They grabbed like the 3-inch wrenches. Like they were big ass fucking industrial wrenches that I was getting beaten with in different tools.
No shit.
What
was the reason for it?
Well, I think he said it because you just didn't know certain tools.
Exactly.
Really?
So that was like your quote unquote punishment because you just didn't know something.
Correct. So how it worked is they would ask me, "What is this tool?" I don't know. Okay. Whack. Here's a hint. And then didn't guess it, got hit again.
No shit.
And it went with that multiple times for quite a few tools. And it gets worse. So my E6 the first class petty officer, he would separate me from my shipmates and touch me inappropriately and say, fucking Mayberry, what am I going to do with you today? Am I going to rape you or am I going to kill you?
No shit.
No shit. And he tried.
So here's the thing, and it's not discussed enough, the amount of sexual assault that does go on and
For
throughout.
males.
Yeah, for males in military, just because so many people refuse to speak of it. And, we've all got this pride. And I'm going to give you this. First thing I want to say, I'm sorry that someone in our brotherhood did that to you.
Do you remember his name, his address, his blood type? Because we just want to reach out. Yeah.
I remember his name full.
Here's the thing. No individual should ever go through that. And you have so much strength for discussing that openly. And I would love for all of us to get together and actually, get with a coalition or an organization that could actually pursue better opportunity for everything from soldiers, Marines, airmen, and seamen. I think that's bad for this this conversation, but bad name. But really, there needs to be more done for it. There needs to be more oversight and channels for individuals in service to be able to come forward and speak of it. So let me guess, you were a whistleblower. And I hate to say you're a whistleblower that type, because essentially what you did is you advocated for yourself and you brought it to command.
Correct. So it was causing a major negative effect because of the separation that he was doing. I got frustrated one day penning one of the hallways. One of my shipmates in that division was being a shithead. And all I said was, it's people like you who make me want to hurt myself. That was it. That is all I said.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess as I said, such true statement.
Yeah.
But it was that conviction that he freaked the hell out. He talked to our ship's doctor and they took me to Portsmouth Naval Hospital for evaluation overnight. I told them exactly what happened. But it was the first time I told anybody the story of what my EN1 was doing, like what he was doing. And at the end of it, the doctor's like, well, either you have to report this or I do. And he's like, it's going to go better if you do. And he's like, look, you've been through some hell. He's like, so I'm going to give you an out. If you want to get out, I'm going to put in this document, in the release paperwork from the hospital. He's like, I'm going to put an out clause that you can pursue. He's like, 99% of the time, nothing ever happens. Nothing occurs. I was like, whatever. I don't have a say in that. So I get back to the ship and I tell my chief petty officer, the same one who beat me with the fucking tools, about what happened. And we get to the ship and we talk to the yeoman and lay out the entire story in depth and all the details. And I'm faced with a decision. They're like, all right, you got two choices here. You can either do an open or a closed investigation. Like, okay, what's the difference? An open investigation is, it's loud, it's proud. I get every single thing that happened is going to get revealed. There's going to be an NCIS investigation and it's going to be out there.
Yeah. Please tell me that's what you chose.
What?
Please tell me that's what you chose.
I chose that.
Okay.
Because the other option was to close to where I would just be removed off the ship. Nothing would happen to him. So as a 19-year-old, as a 19-year-old, I sat there and I thought about this. I'm like, okay, this guy is causing problems with my shipmates. He has been busted down before for fighting and bad behavior. So I sat there for a little bit and said, I'm going to fall on the sword. I'm going to push this because I know what's at stake. I know how he's been, and I'm going to run with this because I don't want anybody else to go through what I did. So I'm going to do an open investigation. And they asked me, are you sure this is what you want? Because this is going to open up that can of worms. And once it gets opened, this may cost you your career. Are you sure you want to do this? And I said, yes. So we started an entire investigation, went through it. And while the NCIS investigation was still going on, Obama ordered a whole bunch of new cuts in the military. This was 2012. Obama ordered those cuts. It was first classified as needs of the Navy. That's how it was first classified. Well, I appealed it. After the investigation was closed, it was right a couple of days before Thanksgiving in 2012. And they said, all right, after Thanksgiving, you're going to be discharged. You're going to be going home. My mind is like, screw you. I'm going to fight this. So I asked, can I appeal this? I'm like, well, yeah, technically you can appeal it.
Would they give you honorable? Or
hold on. I'm not to that point yet. So I go to an admiral's appeal. I get taken off the ship. I get put on shore duty and I fight it for 6 months and I lost the appeal. It went up to an admiral. and I lost. But yes, I got an honorable discharge. So I want to say I was in for 1 year, 8 months, 13 days. So I fought it and I ultimately got discharged. But that shows you my level of conviction of something bad happens and I'm going to speak up for it. And it took me a long time to be okay with talking out loud about this because
Yeah.
I get asked all the time, even in this race, oh, well, you've been in for less than 4 years. Yeah, I was. I was
But
in
you
for
were
less than
forced
2.
out because you were making people you were calling people out. And
Yeah.
and at a certain point it's like, okay, yeah, he wasn't in for that long. But what is the actual story here? Was he kicked out because he was a piece of shit or something else? And clearly
Yeah,
this
and
is
it was
something
obviously.
else. Yeah.
So was the individual that sexually assaulted you, did they chapter him out or were any charges pursued under him?
So that they came back with, they proved that there was severe hazing, but they couldn't prove of the inappropriate touching and the fact that he tried to get into my rack once and try to pull me into his bunk. They couldn't prove that because it was all he said, she said. But there was enough eyewitness testimony of his bad behavior that they proved hazing by NCIS. Well, they didn't bust him down. Nothing really happened. But during my appeal time, he got into a fight with one of our shipmates, and it was a big fight right in front of the chief's, the master chief's office in the medical. It was right there. So he got into a fight, and because of that, my investigation and that fight with so many witnesses, he got busted down to an E5, and because he had over 15 years in, he was discharged because of tenure.
Yeah. No shit.
That's how they got him. But there
no
was that
accountability
bullshit.
for the actual egregious part of this. Everything else, yeah, piece of shit. He obviously should not have been in the Navy.
Yeah, he's a shit.
But the egregious part that should be in both male and female taken serious when there is clear evidence, when there is enough to try to get something accountable here, and to show for any leadership to show, hey, we are actually standing for a true victim here and not someone who's just trying to cause rile people up from nothing. They're always
Yeah.
going to take the easiest way out because what they're going to do is protect their self-image, be like, hey, we investigated, but we didn't really find anything. But we did find a little bit of this, because in the end, whenever someone of senior ranking gets held liable or, found true to engage in that, it all rolls uphill of, well, what was that commander? That's what we call him. Like, what was that ship captain or whoever chief, like, what were they doing to make sure that this shit was kept in check? So it all rolls uphill. So they have to contain their self-image, and that's why they don't fucking take it seriously.
Well, and
Yeah.
here's the crazy part about this. My commanding officer, after I got discharged, within the hour of signing the paperwork, he calls me and he said, you got screwed big time. He's like, I fought for you. You got caught up in some major bullshit and bureaucracy because you want to know some real shit. I actually stopped an international incident from taking place. Being the
really?
youngest and the newest person on the ship, I stopped a team of, there was 6 of us sailors our Liberty group, one of the guys started a fight with another group. And there was a major brawl that took place out in Hanya, Crete. And being this 18, 19-year-old kid, because I was 18 at that time, I believe. No, 19. Being that 19-year-old kid, I stopped grown adults with way more experience and years in from causing a bigger incident. And I got some major accolades because of that. Because I stopped that. And I showed the captain around when he got to the ship. That's just who I am. I'm that type of person. And so after I got discharged, she called me and was like, yeah, you got screwed. If you ever need anything, give me a call. Like, reach out and I will give you a letter of recommendation. I will give you props because you really got screwed.
The VA at least taking good care of you?
It took a while, but they only gave me 60% after a bit. But
Really?
they digged me around for a while. So the VA, when I got discharged, the Navy wouldn't let me get copies or take my medical records.
That's illegal.
It took me years. Like, I tried to get copies of it right there. Like, hey, I need to get copies of this. And they said, no.
Rusty, y'all still got that contact, right? For disability and all that? Don't say it on here, but
yeah, I haven't talked to him in a while, but I'm pretty sure he's still there.
Okay, we'll hook you up with someone if he's still over there. But goddamn, bro, like, I'm sorry to hear that, and I want to say this to everyone. If you're a victim of any sexual assault or anything like that, say something. come to someone that you trust, say something, put it out there. These people need to be held accountable. This is unacceptable, and if you see something, say something. This isn't just for the victim to step forward. It's sometimes you need other people to advocate for you. And obviously you didn't have the right individuals to advocate for you. And it happens all too often in armed forces, a lot of cover-ups, that's why there is so much sexual assault and what they call hazing, but is blatant abuse and abuse of power, on the cover-up. So I'm sorry you had to deal with that. And it says a lot that you're willing to stand up and come forward on that. And I think that, some good could come out of it, out of a shitty situation. And
Well, a lot of good to come out of it.
Yeah. But
see, I've the way I've always talked about how I live my life moving forward is I talk to a lot of people and I hear a lot of people say like, man, I really wish I wouldn't have done that. Man, I really regret that. Man, I really all this shit like that. Like if I could go back and do it all over again, way I tell people is like, look, have I made bad decisions? Yeah. Have I done things that I definitely shouldn't have done? Yeah. Would I go back and do it all different? No. Here's the reason why. Because the reason why I'm here today and why I have the ability to do what I do, why I feel like I'm successful, I'm happy with my wife, my kids and stuff, like the reason why I feel like the only reason why I'm here is because of that dumb decision I made when I was younger or making the wrong decision in the moment, because like it all led to here. One different decision puts me on a completely different path and I might not end up here. So it's like, yeah, I'd never ever dismiss the fact that I made dumb decisions. Yeah, we all do, but I wouldn't change a goddamn thing because the whole reason why I'm here today is because I made that dumb decision and it put me down this path. Obviously I learned from it and I'm thinking better now. And if the same decision was put in front of me, I know not to make that dumb decision again, but I wouldn't go back and change it. Because I'm here today because of that dumb decision and the path that led me to. So
that's exactly how I feel with this. Is that I played the scenario out. If I would have just stayed quiet, or if I would have said something else sooner, where would have I been? But it's put me in the path that I am now. Because I will say, the Timothy that was at 19 years old is not the same one you're seeing before you today. 14 years later, I have a much different mentality. And that taught me a lot more resilience. It taught me that, one, no one is fully going to come and save your ass. That you have to save yourself. And that no one's going to speak up for you. But it taught me that in times of pressure, when the arrows are flying, when the accusations are coming, what am I going to do? And it's taking the hard route. It is taking the one to where I don't mind taking the arrows for the other people. And I've done that again and again and again. And that's just how the person that I am. So that situation has forged me to being more resilient today. So I don't shy away from that. And that's why I'm upfront, because some people will pull this out and they're going to address it. It's like, yes, but here is the full story. So when people test, well, what makes you qualified? What's your track record? Well, you look at my past, I will fall on the sword and I don't give a damn what it costs me. If it costs me a career, if it costs me everything, I am willing to do what is right, no matter the personal cost.
Well, just think of how many seamen you saved by coming forward. You know what I mean? From that aggressor.
Stop saying that word. Just say sailors, dumb fuck.
Is it seamen or sailors?
Sailors.
Sailor sounds better.
I guess, especially in this conversation.
Unless you like to guzzle them.
Oh, God.
And Rusty's like, gosh damn it.
Damn it, I can't drink it.
Now,
all right, let's move on.
Swallow.
Let's move on. Let's move on to the next gay part of your life, fire department.
Went from being on ships
because we have Chase.
My brother's a firefighter in Bear County.
We're at in Bear County.
What firehouse he works for? It's over by that shooting range. That firehouse by that shooting range in Bear County.
Okay, Bear County ESD 2.
Yeah, 2. That's what it is. Yeah, firehouse 2. That's where he works.
Yeah. I know that area.
My kids live in San Antonio.
That's where I served in Bear County. So we actually mutual aided with the side of town, and then also on part of their other district. So I'm very familiar with Bear County fire departments and all the drama and the crap. Because when I first started, Bear County ESD 2 was still called Geronimo Village.
Really?
They had when I was first in the area, they had one station, and it was a rural county department. And now that area, I want to say, has 5 or 6 stations. It's grown up massively.
That area has blown up quite a bit. Yeah. So you come out of the Navy, you join the fire department, and tell us a little bit about your time in the fire department.
So I started off as a volunteer right out of the academy. So I get discharged May 13th, 13, geez. May 13, I get discharged. And then I apply to the San Antonio College Fire Academy several days later. And I get enrolled. I'm still able to get access to the GI Bill very quickly. I get enrolled in the college and I start volunteering a few weeks later. So within a month of being discharged, I ended up volunteering at a fire department. A month and a half in, I am starting the fire academy, and I do that as a volunteer. I get all my certifications. The department that I was volunteering at, I became paid, and I was at that department for a couple of years, and then I got on with the city of Live Oak. And while I was at the city of Live Oak, I was also part-timing with another department, Bear County ESD. Oh, it became Bear County ESD 10, but it was called Gardendale. So volunteering at Gardendale with one station, and then several departments had an issue that they merged with. So I was still volunteering, part-timing, and working in other departments. I spent a lot of time in that career field. I spent over a decade total in Bear County. And while I was still doing that, I spent time at a drunk tank. Part of my job was a part-time job. I was spending 12-hour shifts working with the homeless and the public intoxicated in downtown San Antonio, right next to Haven for Hope homeless shelter.
Being a public servant.
Being a public servant, yeah, as an EMT. So I've gotten really good skills of talking to people who are addicts, who are in very shitty situations, and remaining calm. One fun story about this is there was this one guy, his name was Carlos. Carlos was this raging alcoholic to where if his blood alcohol level dropped below a 0.2, not a 0.02, but a 0.2, he would go through withdrawals. So
Sounds
when
like
he came,
Frank from Selfless or Shameless.
pretty much. So this guy would come in and he would be belligerent towards everybody. And he'd be like, F you, you suck. And then for me, he's like, all right, you're cool. Well, because I treat him like it.
Fuck you. Sorry.
Yeah, it was exactly the same. And it was because I treated him calmly. I understood how to talk to him. And it was at one point where he started being belligerent towards me. And I'm like, Carlos, what the heck, man? It's like, aren't I respectful to you? When you come in here, do I treat you like a regular person? And he said, well, yes, you do. I was like, okay, well, would you like for me to treat you the same way that you're treating me right now? I can switch it up on you. And he said, good point. That's valid. And he corrected himself. But that's a unique balance. So I did that for a bit. And then I left the city of Live Oak to go to flight school. I was still part-timing at ESD 10. So I went to flight school. I had my private pilot's license, and I got it during COVID. I started flight school January of 2020. So January, February 2020, I started flight school. And then the day we put our house up on the market, COVID happened. Like the lockdowns came into place. Went through that, got my pilot's license, and then looked at everything and said, well, the airlines are closed down. No one's hiring. I had a death in the family. That meant we were about to inherit a house, a mobile home with a half an acre. My brother and I were, and went back to ESC 10 full time. And from there, I became a fire lieutenant. So I've held from volunteer, firefighter, driver to lieutenant. And if I would have stayed in, I'd be battalion chief right now.
Not a bad gig. Not a bad gig. Okay, so now we're heading to your politics. You know, we'll fast.
Real quick. What homeless shelter did you volunteer at?
So I didn't volunteer. I was actually paid.
Well, which one were you working at?
So I worked directly at Haven for Hope for 1 month, and it was part of the Center for Healthcare Services.
What year specifically?
2016.
So my wife, she's retired Air Force, and she spent 7 years total in San Antonio. She was a mental health tech, and she volunteered at Haven for Hope. That's why I was asking, see if you guys maybe have crossed paths just inadvertently back in the day. But she says she didn't volunteer until like 2017 through 2021 because she would go volunteer, and in some of her time like with her students when she taught the mental health career field, which taught Navy, Army, and Air Force, they would have to go out and do do stuff with Haven for Hope, as well as going to inpatient stuff. So that's why I was curious. I was like, I don't know, maybe you inadvertently ran into my wife back in the day, just, while at Haven for Hope. So.
It's still possible because for the public safety unit is right across the street from Haven for Hope. So you walk out of the door from the public safety unit, look to the left, there's Haven. It's right there because it's all owned by the same company or same group. It's called the Center for Healthcare Services. So I started as an EMT at Haven, but then when I got full time with the fire department, that's when I went part time at the public safety unit. And it was 12-hour shifts during the either the morning or the night, and that worked out better because the Haven job was from 8 to 5, or it was random hours, and that also happened to kind of coincide with other things I wanted to do.
That's pretty cool though. I was just, just an inadvertent little connection in that point. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Now let's jump into, now you're going into politics. What got you looking at going for lieutenant governor, and then give us some of the things that you're planning on running on, some of your ideas.
So this isn't something that I want to do. It's something that I'm called to do. Over the past couple of years, God's been dealing with me about, one, I've always been a Christian and gone to church, but I wouldn't say I had a real great relationship with God. After after a suicide attempt, because I had gotten injured on the job. I was rehashing shit to the VA. I ended up having a cry for help that went unanswered, and I almost took my own life. So I was pulling a trigger to a gun when my wife was 9 months pregnant in the room next door. She had no idea what was happening or what was about to happen. And out of that, I put the gun down and said, okay, I'm done with this. I ended up giving God's look, I pretty much sacrificed my life at this point. I'm done with living my life my way. God, it's yours. However you want this to be, here we go. Well, God's been preparing me about getting into politics at some point in time. Didn't know exactly what. He'd been showing me that I have a major calling on my life and that it was going to be great, but it was going to be a lot of sacrifice, and it was going to be a heavy, heavy burden.
Uh-huh.
And at the church down the road, there was 2 sermons that the pastor said, someone in this room is called to change the political landscape of this country. And both times it was, that's you. I was like, okay, that's very direct, God. Then fast forward a little bit. So fast forward to 2024. I was really trying to figure out what this was. I was trying to be a precinct chair because everyone says you need to work your way up. You need to be a precinct chair first. So I was really looking at that. I was talking with our county GOP chair about being a precinct chairman. I went up for an altar call Sunday, and the pastor said, I got a word for you. The word is, stop trying to figure it out. God says your plans, your path is not here yet. It's close, but just hold and wait. And I was convicted and knew what that meant. I knew that I was trying to push the political aspect. So God said, no. January 7th, at a different church that we had just started going to a few weeks prior, I get called up in front of everybody, in front of the entire congregation. So there was between 50 and 100 people that day. I get called up, and I was told to be a shepherd of his people, and that the time was now. The church elders came up, they prayed for me, and then God directs me to do a fast. So I started a fast, and then fast forward 2 days. So now we're at January 9th, 2025. I go to bed at 9 p.m., and I wake up an hour later from this encounter. I was in this massive warehouse that I couldn't see the end of it. And this glowing figure was touching my shoulder, showing me things to come on one of the walls. And I wake up, and my spirit's like, that was just Jesus that you encountered. And then I get a download. I get specific instructions for a friend of mine. Then that I was going to be lieutenant governor, and then to tell my friend a name to show the authority coming from God. It was a pause, and it was, have I finally shown you enough, my son, for you to trust me? I was like, ouch, that hurts. That's a deep conviction. So I go back to bed. I tell my wife the next morning what happened, and she's like, well, you better call that guy. So I call him up. I give him the message. I give him that name. He says, okay, that's interesting. So he gave me the last name. I had the first. He gave me the last name and sent me a link to this lady's website. And I'm like, okay, I don't get it. He said this individual is connected to Trump and is the one who helped get him elected. This person is poaching me to do something in Texas and has brought my name forth to the president. And I said, excuse me? He's like, no, this is legit. He then showed me receipts and to back up his statements. I was like, okay, that's powerful. A couple of days later, God shows me more about this man's life in intimate details, like intimate detail, to where I knew conversations that he was having with people, and I knew many other things. And he said, Tim, whatever frequency you're plugged into, you're on the right one. Because he's like, no offense to you, but nobody like you would know what's going on in my life. To give you the kind of caliber of that man, he's that secretive, that type of caliber. It'd almost be like knowing Trump or one of his shadow figures or someone that's associated with him that's just as powerful, if not more powerful than he is or he was. To know intimate conversations and details, who knows how to be a ghost, if that helps you track it, Dustin and Rusty.
Yeah.
So to know a ghost in those realms, to know conversations that intimately that you should not know, that raises a red flag or that raises some concerns. And I don't have any of those. I didn't have any of those ties. I just happened to know. After that conversation, I hung up the phone, told my wife and said, okay, God, if you really want me to go for lieutenant governor, you're going to have to make a way. Like, this is going to be a you thing. This is not a Timothy thing because I'm not prepared for running. Because most politicians, most people who run spend years upon years upon years building out a team, building out resources, money, and a strategy.
Getting their name out.
Exactly. God said, you're going to go. So I sat on it for about a month before I fully charged. And then one day, I'm like, okay, God, when is this going to happen? When do you want to do this? And then it was in February of last year. It's like, now. It was a couple of weeks after that. God's like, now run. I'm like, are you sure about this? I challenged him. And it's like, yes, run. Now is the time. Like, okay, here we go. So I started the run. I started doing the process. I started learning. I want to say I filed in April of last year. And I start that process. I was invited to go to DC with the Greater San Antonio Chamber of Commerce. So I got to go meet legislators up in DC. A month or so later, I was at their Austin trip. So I got involved with the Greater San Antonio Chamber of Commerce with how they were lobbying, how they were talking to our congressional members and our legislators in state and federal levels. So I got to see that aspect from the business side, and then just started going and meeting people. That's how I met James Matlock in this race. That's how I got associated with Kimberly Moyers, and then I got associated with Doc during the Hill Country flood. So my first text to Doc was because I was talking with Kim. I was like, we just came from the parade on July 4th because I helped them with the parades. I created them a website that they could use for donations that can come in and people provide additional info. So on July 4th for the flooding, we ended up, after getting back to the house, heard that Kerrville was getting devastated. Kim said that Doc was headed to Kerrville, and I texted her like, okay, I want to get involved. Like, what's Doc's number? So I sent Doc a text like, hey, what can I do to help? And I want to say it was like a very short message of, we need supplies. That was it. I contacted the Starksville VFW post. I said, hey, we've been hearing that Kerrville is getting devastated. Are we able to open up the Starksville VFW post to collect supplies? I put out a call on social media in the Canyon Lake Facebook group, and we received a lot of supplies. So much so that we were able to send 11 trucks and 7 trailers of supplies to Kerrville.
Damn.
So that was my first interaction with Doc, was that like, hey, what do y'all need? Supplies. Okay. Very quickly assembled people across the state and across the country, actually, who showed up there. Well, as we were demobilizing that place, because they wanted it cleared out because they had bingo night in a couple of days. They were more they cared more about their bingo night than helping people. They were like, this is only for a couple of hours, like a couple of days that y'all can use it for. So we had to demobilize that Sunday night and had to clean up Monday morning so they could have the place back for bingo night on Tuesday.
Damn.
So yeah, real shit. They got kind of pissy about that. And I got frustrated too. But we ended up sending those supplies. And after our last truck had gone up, someone dropped off another pallet of supplies. And I get word that Sunday night that Leander got devastated as well on the 5th. That Leander had a major problem and that they were desperate. The next morning, I called up the church that was there. I want to say it was like the Round Mountain or Baptist Church. Anyways, I called them up and they verified, like, yes, we are in desperate need. We're almost out of food. We're almost out of water. We don't baby formula and diapers. We don't. We're desperate, and I could hear the panic in their voice. Being in the fire department, you can tell when someone's panicky or someone's like or their adrenaline's running, and I could hear that. So we went to a U-Haul. We lit up those supplies, drove to Kerrville, to Leander, and I got out of the U-Haul to inspect the bridge because the bridge has suffered major damage. So there's pictures of me inspecting this bridge before this U-Haul drives across it. And we end up in Leander, and I'm there for almost 2 weeks on my own dime, my own volition, because I saw what was failing. I saw what was going on there. And there was other people of Doc's team who was coordinating resources that were coming in and out. So I got to work with some of Remnant Ministry and other organizations that were down there. So that was where my full and first interactions with Doc and his team were. And I didn't actually get to meet Doc until months later.
So this was all through phone and text and stuff, and then you finally met him later.
Yeah. Like I had very little direct communication with him because, Dusty, as we kind of discussed, I'm that lone operator. You give me a mission, I operate, I figure out the rest, and I will check in with you as I need to or as you request it.
So you've met Doc. Okay. And here's my mentality. Me and Rusty have talked about this. See if it gives you the same feeling that I get from it. Doc has that persona and that personality that makes you want to run through a fucking brick wall for him. Like, he carries himself in that way and with that presence that when Doc says, there's a threat on that other wall, you're going to just run through that brick wall instead of going around it. You are like, he's got that mentality. Do you agree, or what's your thought on that?
Natural born leader that can inspire and bring it. And not only that, like, lead from the front, not send people in. And then when shit goes south, then he'll just send more people in. Like a lot of these politicians, especially Governor Abbott and Dan Patrick, like they're going to send everybody in and hope it goes that way but they'll never lead from the front.
Yeah. Again, I didn't meet Doc until months later. I want to say I didn't actually get to meet him in person and really talk with him until October of 25. So October this past year, when I actually got to meet him in person. Like, I talked to him, I texted him a few times, but that was it. I didn't have many in-depth conversations. It was just, hey, this is what we need. Okay, let's set it up. And I worked with people on his team who talked with him more. But again, for me, I'm that rogue operator. I'm able to insert. And the thing is, I was still running for my lieutenant governor at that point. I was still on my campaign trail. But when I was in Leander, you can call up some people there. If y'all want to verify this, I wasn't telling anybody what I was up to and that I was running.
You're staying kind of humble about it. You were there to do something, not promote yourself.
Correct. I was in the midst of the shit, and there's some real shit that we can talk off later on about that happened in Leander. There's some real screwed up stuff that happened.
Yeah. No, I could see that.
The point that I'm getting at is I didn't tell people what I was up to. That I wasn't out there for campaigning. I went social media silent while I was there, and that was by choice. And I had a couple of people towards the end figure out that I was running for lieutenant governor. And they were like, holy shit, are you freaking serious? Like, yeah, I am. They verified, they looked it up and like, wow. And I was like, don't tell them. Don't tell people what I'm here for or what I'm doing. Because I'm not here for glory. I'm not here for name recognition. I'm here because there is a problem and I'm here to help solve it. And I don't want it to be perceived in any other way.
See, and that's good to hear, because over the last 11 years, all we've been seeing is Abbott and, obviously Dan Patrick, a lot of it is smoke and mirrors. They don't act unless it's a photo op or it's good publicity, something that they can either use to virtue signal or that they can use to platform. And it's nice to hear, and it's really refreshing to hear, like, I've got this selfless duty I'm going to go do because I'm called to do it. And rather than saying, well, I'm going to jump on a soapbox and wave my hand in the air and said, look, I helped. Hey guys, it's me. I'm running for lieutenant governor. I helped. Or I'm running for governor. I did this. Like, it is such a refreshing statement to hear that, you did it because it was a selfless act. And you said, hey, I don't want this to come out that I'm running. I'm doing this for the people, not for a ad campaign.
And I would say probably one thing that is like a good and kind of a, obviously not so good when it comes to just running for politics, period, right? Like, I haven't heard or seen a lot of your stuff promoted. Now, that can be like for, whatever reason, because we have like so many people trying to eat. I mean, you even look now, it says that there's no contenders for Abbott. I'm just like, really, dude? Like, it's ridiculous. But I also put that in an aspect of like, look, you're obviously not getting affiliated with a lot of these big PACs and big corporations and stuff like that that would fund a media blitz. You know what I mean? So that shows like,
Mhm.
hey, you're here to serve, not to start a new career. And that puts a lot of, I guess, more trust into the campaign versus, well, I see, stuff about Dan Patrick and Don Huffins and all these other people all the time. So, I mean, they just must be right, because that's all I see is ads for them. I'm like, no, that just means that they have a big war chest that funds a lot of campaign stuff. And for all we know, they could stand for jack shit.
Yeah.
But I also
That's
know
what
that the
happens.
double-edged sword of not a lot of people know who you are is not a lot of people know they have a choice.
It's a very fine line,
Yeah.
essentially. Okay, so what some of the things you're running on? Hell, here's my big one that I'll bring it up and I'll be blunt about it. I do not partake in the devil's lettuce in the hemp products, but I do see that it is a huge potential attribute for the state of Texas. Whether it is for tax revenue, whether it is for job growth, industry standards, for regulation, there's a lot of avenues that I look at as the hemp community, especially as an agricultural crop. And I look at it as so the cannabis industry just alone, that's beyond talking about hemp in general. You're looking at a $500 million a year industry in tax revenue for the state, which could ultimately offset the cost of a lot of property tax. If you really think about the slogan, I mentioned earlier that I have is weed bucks off your tax bill. A lot of that money could go into the infrastructure. And I know that you are campaigning on, or one of your areas that you want to touch on is hemp reform. And so is it a full cannabis legalization, or is it just off of an agricultural industry side?
So it's both. And I'm not going to say full legalization. It's kind of like what it is right now, where we do have access to some of these products, but there is some regulation. It's to tighten up that regulation and to ensure that it's not gotten rid of. Because right now there's a nasty little coup that's going on behind closed doors to where
Yes.
you have a lot of special interests who are pushing the Texas Compassionate Use Program, or TCUP. And in essence, it's a legal cartel that a select few companies get to do, and they charge astronomical rates. Well, you can go and get a product for 30 to 50 bucks. They're going to charge you 100 to 150 for the exact same one. They charge stupid amounts, and that's not economical. So if you want to apply to TCUP, you have to apply to the program. You have to get the license, and you have to go to a special doctor. And it's not cheap to do this. It's a racket. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And I've seen through that. So I want regulation of it. I don't think it should be completely like free for all.
So you don't think it should go for recreational use? You think for medicinal property purposes only?
I mean, people are gonna do it recreationally. I view it like alcohol.
I agree. Okay.
But
So
to be able to purchase it at a controlled shop where we know they're getting good
with regulation.
like I guess you could say where they're gonna get the good shit and not stuff that's tainted by like fentanyl or anything like that, from buying at a local dealer through cartel means and other nefarious means. That's what you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Which would ultimately, one of the good things about that is going through, using EPA and the FDA and such, it would help, I think, prevent a lot of these pesticides and herbicides that such as the cartels are using for their grow operations. That is essentially getting in individuals that partake in its, blood system, which are cancer causing agents and poisons, you know what I mean? So good. You're more on the recreational legalization side. What do you think about, could the tax revenue be utilized for it to offset our tax burden, our federal tax burden, or I'm sorry, our property tax burden, and as well as, so I believe it looks like just on the base level, we're looking at 100 to 300,000 jobs. How much of it of an influence and how benefit can our state see from that, running on that?
So right now, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick tried to criminalize and outlaw this industry last year.
I signed that petition to tell him to fuck off.
Glad you did. A lot of people did. It gave the middle finger to him, and it showed that the Governor Abbott of, hey, this isn't a topic that I probably shouldn't engage with the same rhetoric as a lieutenant governor. So we got to see a divide between Abbott and Patrick. Now, here's a real cost that nobody has put together yet. And I put this together this past week. So if that were to happen right off the bat, there would be a negative impact of $1.3 billion to the state of Texas revenue. Very quickly. So we get roughly $600 million in taxes, sales tax off of hemp, selling of hemp, and then factor in unemployment. So I went and I got the average amount for unemployment of how much that people get. And I multiplied that by the average time someone's on unemployment in the state of Texas. And I multiplied those two together. And the number was just shy of 700 billion.
No shit.
Sorry, 700 million. So
okay,
total,
I was going to say,
sorry. 700 million. I misspoke. 700 million. Those two combined comes up to 1.3 billion just off of that. And you're not looking at the additional economic cost of that. When a lot of these businesses, they have loans out for well over $100,000, and there's 8,000 businesses. That is a lot of additional revenue. So if you're thinking about it, if you have an average loan of $100,000 and there are 8,000 businesses, that means you will have a negative impact in our GDP alone from defaulting of 800 billion. And that one is with a B. So that's the real impact that our lieutenant governor was trying to do. 800 billion, because that would mean those companies and those businesses would default. Because I've talked to a lot of these shop owners. They can't afford that. If the industry gets shut down and all their loans are recalled, they're screwed. They're declaring bankruptcy. That's a huge negative impact right there.
Well, here's another caveat to that. So on the legalization side, if it was legalized on recreational, so it would also save the Texas taxpayers $200 to $300 million per year just in the criminal justice system alone, because all these low-level offenses wouldn't be prosecuted, they wouldn't be incarcerated. Essentially, you're not going to harden these low-level criminals into hardened criminals. So a lot of people aren't taking the general perspective on what the legalization process could possibly do for the state. Right now I was wrong on my numbers originally. So we have 67% consensus in Texas as pro-recreational marijuana legalization. Medicinal use, we're at 87% or 83%, something like that in those numbers. Texas is leaning towards the legalization, and they're seeing, especially when you can go over state lines to Louisiana, you can go to Oklahoma, you can go to New Mexico, and you can get cannabis in those areas from dispensaries, and it's a clean cannabis, where now people are starting to lean. And then I think a lot of people are getting smart to, the prohibition on cannabis. It was all established all because of William Randolph Hearst, and he was a paper tycoon, and he didn't want to compete with a much more efficient cash crop in hemp to make paper. And, it was just a huge con from, that them in the early 1900s. And then, Harry Asinger or Aslinger or whatever the asshole's name is, he ended up getting appointed to the first head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, by Andrew Melton, who was one of the heavy investors for DuPont, and they were in a contract to make nylon rope, which, guess what? You can make more efficient rope out of hemp, and it's better on the environment. So, I think a lot of the Texas public is getting smart to the flawed prohibition, that it would help the economy. Ultimately, it's a good way to get to Gen Z, you know? And I'm just going to go into my more, you know, libertarian views. Who the fuck is the government to tell me what I can or can't put in my goddamn body? If I'm not hurting anyone in my household, who the fuck is the government to tell me otherwise? You know what I mean? Like, as a conservative and a Republican, all the Republicans are going off of a basis of small government, less, you know, infringement in your rights. But all we're seeing every day is Democrats and Republicans are infringing more and more into our personal lives. Instead of stepping back and saying, you live your life, I'm going to run the state and I'm going to let you do whatever you're doing in your household without affecting other people. And I love your stance on going towards pushing, you know, marijuana and cannabis, and which I hate the word marijuana because that's not even the actual term for it. But you know, that's all based off of reefer madness. You know, it's
Mary
all
Jane, weed, chronic.
it's all propaganda. It's all propaganda, and it
icky.
just shows the corruption within our government.
And you're right. There's a lot of corruption that dives deep with this. And when you start peeling back the onion layer and figuring out who's involved, what's going on,
Pharmaceuticals.
exactly, that's part of it.
Big
There's a
fucking
lot
pharma.
of got to take big pharma down, and you see that's part of the big donors. Big donors, big insurance companies, they don't give a damn about us. All we're seeing is a cash cow, and it's time for us to break that cycle. And that's what I look at. When it comes to every policy, every belief, and everything that I do, I evaluate. I don't just make a brash decision out of emotions or arrogance. I take information in, I look at both sides, I disseminate what's going on, and then I make a decision. And as something new comes in, I'm okay with changing a position. I'm okay with updating it because of new information. I'm not just going to get stuck on an old set of way. And I think that's where we have a problem with a lot of our officials. They get stuck in ego. They go on one track and then they're not going to change it. We've seen Dan Patrick and we've seen Abbott do that. They go on one thing and then they just stick with it, or they become very wishy-washy. It's like, well, maybe which ways are my donors leaning?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
you could tell there's the puppet master at play.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm very careful with where I get money from, who I have alliances with, and who comes around my circle, because I've seen these games get played. I was warned very early on by a contact of mine. He was like, you're on their radar. They're afraid of you. Be very careful with who you trust. Be very careful with what's going on, and limit the amount of drama, because they're going to try to pull you into some stupid shit.
Yeah.
So I learned this very early on, and I've seen this happen already. So I keep things as lean as possible and as cheap as possible so that I can be more effective with what I have. And that's part of the reason why I had to be careful. So just so y'all are aware, during the whole Hill Country flooding, I actually did several interviews with the media, and none of them went online. None of them they aired.
Really?
Really. I raised a red flag, and I wasn't telling them I was running. I raised a red flag that citizens in Leander received a wildfire evacuation notice in the middle of the flooding.
Wildfire.
Yep. And I heard the recording. I heard one of the citizens who had the voicemail and of the recording that they were given. And she showed me the timestamp. It was in the middle of the night. And it said wildfire evacuation notice. That was one of the things that went through. And I brought that to a news outlet. I talked to them on air. They recorded the segment and what was we considered ground zero in Leander. It never aired.
So you're pro cannabis, right? What about psilocybin, mushrooms, and cacti and such, you know, like that, other natural plants? What is your take on it?
I believe that God gave us different plants that can actually help us. Now I'm going to say something that's going to maybe put a target. I'm iffy on the psilocybin right now, not because of its benefits. Sorry, not psilocybin. I think it's ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca, yeah, cacti.
I'm kind of iffy about that because from what I'm seeing is there's some legislation that we got pushed through about ayahuasca coming in. And our former governor, Rick Perry, is pushing for ayahuasca. They're pushing for some of these treatments as experiments, as possibilities. But what I'm hearing in the back channels right now is there's a dirty little play that's happening, that they're investing in the industry. They're investing in building out frameworks right now. And so when it does hit and it does become legal and all those things happen, they're going to set massive profits. It's also part of the reason why SB3 was getting criminalized. It was for recriminalized. It was for two reasons. One, to start putting the lid back onto people, putting the lid back onto it, profiting for teacup. But then the other aspect was it opened up a deeper conversation about mental health and veterans and different types of alternative treatments.
Hell yeah.
So there's another avenue to that. So I'm following this very closely of what is going on behind the scenes, because I'm all for helping our fellow veterans. I'm all for helping people who have been through shit.
Yeah.
And because I can say the medication that the VA gives us is absolute bullshit. It is crap that what they do. It's delay until you die or medication until you're a zombie.
Yeah, kick the can down the road, essentially.
Exactly.
So,
it's not a
that's essentially why I didn't say MDMA whenever I asked that question. But I do believe that all of that needs to go through some channels of research and some better studies put on it for mental health and such. Look, I'm on the fence on full legalization on ayahuasca. I do think that psilocybin mushrooms, they should be legalized just the same as cannabis. But I do agree with you on ayahuasca. And I will say this, them profiting off of something good, doing something good, if that's the only way to get it passed, then I'm going to support it. Everyone's got to make some money. Look, with the cannabis industry, look how many billions of dollar industry that is. At least they're smart enough to get in on it early. It's no different than Nancy Pelosi's fucking back channel insider trading bullshit that she's got billions off of, or millions off of. But look, if that's the only way to get it legalized, then I'm a supporter of it. You know what I mean? I'm going to say that because, you know, I know you stand for mental health. And so it's funny because cannabis is like the heart of, you probably don't see it like that, but whenever I look at everything you're campaigning on, cannabis is the heart of your campaign. Because every time it beats, that heart beats and it goes to mental health. And it's what cannabis and those other avenues can do for mental health. And it's, you know, you're anti-pharma and big pharma and vaccines and such. And I look at how much that heart beats in cannabis and the prohibition caused by the big pharma and vaccination companies. And then I look at the border crisis and how much cannabis and other narcotics are coming over the border so that heart beats and it could essentially help facilitate that. It'll pay for a border wall, for God's sakes. You know what I mean? And more border security. You know, the heart will beat and it goes to the Texas militia. And, you know, it could fund that Texas militia. That heart beats and it goes to the property taxes, you know, lower taxes. Guess what? You can offset the taxes for it. So I look at cannabis and the other, you know, natural medicines as, you know, a heart of your campaign. I don't know if it's something you thought of or if you've looked at it in that aspect, but whenever I look at you overwhelmingly, that's what I see from it. Like me, it was surprising to me that you're not running on the cannabis as your number one. And then that's the root, and then the tree is growing from that. And it's touching every facet of your campaign because you can tie everything back to that cannabis policy and really, really go a long way. You know, mental health, it can also get into the rehabilitation facilities for drug rehabilitation, you know, the mental health facilities, you know, like there's so much education system, like cannabis can turn around and it can fund some programs that can ultimately fund tech programs in these high schools. And, you know, whether it's welding or, you know, CNAs or estheticians or NDT or whatever they're funding. And I think that cannabis as an industry and the amount of infrastructure it can build around us can ultimately produce so much additional revenue for the state.
And it can. And part of that I had to be careful on. I say be careful is a lot of Republicans, a lot of the old school conservatives who actually have been voting.
Fuck them.
They don't like that. And it's like, I've lost endorsements and I lost support, a lot of support because of that. But at the same time, it's a common sense ground and to see both sides of the aisle of what's really happening and how do we work together to solve that? Because some of the people who are against it say, well, look at California, look at Colorado, all the states that do it, They have higher crime rates. They have higher homelessness. They have higher mental health. Those are the arguments that they say. And
But how much of that's actually, how much of that's accurate and how much of it's propagandized?
for what I'm seeing, it's the majority of that's propagandized. But the
Exactly.
thing is, that's part of the way to start pushing against it. But a lot of the old school conservatives are just like, so the best way to put that, Dusty and Rusty. So last night in that X space that you were a part of, how they were so vehemently against Islam and they were saying it's all bad, all or nothing. It's the exact same thing for these old school conservatives when it comes to
No, I
hemp.
agree. Here, since we're going to get into their narrative, then here, let's be open with it, because I can be more frank than you. I can be a lot more blunt than you. I'm not going to say anyone's names because they're not here to defend themselves. But last night, it was disgusting. Me being on that channel and being able to interact and being the only individual other than yourself after I stood up and spoke against it, it was disgusting. And they are not in touch with their base and Gen Z and the constituents. I heard Islamophobic rhetoric. I heard homophobic rhetoric. I heard me first rhetoric, where it was what I say and feel matter, and what you believe, it's fuck you. Like that was the rhetoric I heard. And it was so refreshing to, after I stood up and called everyone out on it and was so fucking disgusted by it, that you stood up afterwards and said, you know what? That's what I'm saying. We need to unify the people. And it's right. Like, if we start vilifying Islam as a whole, guess what? It's going to create radicalism. If we start vilifying homosexuality as a whole and saying they're less of a Christian because what they do in their bedrooms, you're going to cause radicals. You're going to cause the radical left. And they do not see that. They're going to push voters, especially young voters, away. They need to be unifying, have open arms. We need to unify, bring everyone together as a coalition, and essentially direct into good belief patterns, and to be a good Texas citizen. And I love some of your answers last night on the debate. And look, I think there was a lot. William, he's out of District 31, I believe. I think he had some pretty good answers after I kind of called some shit out, especially on his, Israel views. But big picture is, I think that the party as a whole is really falling into this mainstream media narrative of what Republicans are, and they're out of touch with the constituents and the voters. And I think you're falling into the level of where you should be more on the libertarian style of keep government out of your personal lives and do what it's meant to do and run the state. And I love that. It was so fucking refreshing to hear. Like, I really did. And I appreciate that. Like, you did a great job whenever it came to being yourself and opening up. And I felt like a lot of it was an attack on you. It was a gangbang on you as a person, and everyone jumped on you and beat you down, and you held your fucking own instead of playing victim like other individuals. Like, it was just really refreshing to see and hear. And I do appreciate that from you, that you stood up and you essentially said, fuck you to the, propagandized Republican camp. And you said, I'm me. I believe in unity. We're a Texas people all together, because guess what? We are. These individuals aren't going in to be a, servant of just this type of Christian. These people are going in. If you're going to step up and say, I'm going to stand for Texas, Texas is more than Christians. Your standard, you're sitting on a pedestal Christians. Texas is full of agnostics, atheists, Christians, Catholics, Muslims, Hindu, Buddhists, homosexuals, all these different, races, religions, creeds, ideologies. They were so one-sided, and it was repulsive to me. Completely disgusting.
As somebody told, I'll let you go, Rusty.
No, because me and him were going back and forth about it earlier today, so it's just
hence why I didn't say any names.
No, but because I listened to the recording, and one thing that me and him talked about afterwards, right? Like, look, regardless of what group, whether it be Islam, Christians, Jews, Hindus, fucking, I don't know, the mole rat people, I don't care who it is. Like, there's going to be bad bullshit in everything.
Bad actors. There's bad actors.
And there's going to be people doing shit that they shouldn't, period. And what we were talking about, and we want to kind of get your, kind of a more, hey, free reign, open, you take as much time as you need to address this. We understand that, especially, with the 20 plus years on the war on terror, specifically in the Middle East, specifically with, kind of Muslims and stuff like that, yes, radical Muslims and stuff like that, they exist. We understand that. Same thing when it comes to any other group of people, there's going to be people that are like that. But when everybody in their sphere talks about like, stop the Islamication, we need to get rid of Muslims and stuff like that, it's like, look, you have your opinion, you're a free American, you think how you want, fine. But where do we see the line being drawn on this particular subject of, if there's credible information that, hey, this specific mosque maybe, or this specific group maybe has ties to some type of, ill intent, terrorist type of group, whatever like that, and you do the investigation in that using, the resources and whatnot. If it yields that, hey, this is true, obviously you have to take action because they're taking advantage of that quote unquote religious whatever, right? But if it yields nothing, do we still go to that point of like, hey, this is a legitimate place of worship. We did our investigation. We verified that there's no ill intent, and we're going to leave it at that, because you get to the point of like, we have to shut down all these mosques. We have to kick out all these mosques. We have to blah, 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 whatever it is. Then you're completely infringing on the First Amendment.
Yeah, they were completely talking about eradication of, Islam. And I think that is a complete infringement on our First Amendment right, because you and I both know the government, you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. They slowly infiltrate themselves into our lives and take away our constitutional rights. So what's your thought?
My thought is, as someone put it to me earlier, last year, I was starting to run. They're like, look, you're going to be the lieutenant governor of Texas. If something happens to the governor steps out, you are now the governor. That means you are supposed to represent and be the voice for all of Texas. It's not just the Christians. It's not just the men. It's everybody. And you just can't say, I'm going to want to eradicate or kick out an entire group of people. There's a problem with that. And that's why I asked, where are you trying to go with it? Like, to what extent? The guy in charge, it sounded like he wanted full eradication, to which we saw during World War II.
Mm-hmm.
That was the level of the rhetoric that I was hearing. It's like, look, that's not the case. Not everyone is, as he claims, about a level 5 or 6 on jihad. We just can't say one group of people is evil and they're all bad. Because the moment you say that, that is very dangerous rhetoric. That is saying one person's evil and you want to get rid of them all. So what we have to do is we have to find the common ground, the common enemy, and say, look, you need to police yourselves. Both sides. There are radicals on both sides of the aisle who are starting and doing stupid stuff. Those are the people that we need to police on our own. Those are the ones that we need to control. Those are the ones that say, look, you are a bad actor. And a lot of this looks like a psyop. When I mentioned psyop, it seemed like it just went over their head like, whoom, like they weren't paying attention. So my belief.
Hold on, I'm going to stop you right there, because you're saying something. I think I'm going to help you say this better. So we know the Muslim community and we know how they operate, and they are a lot more family operated and family conducive, which we know that, Sharia law does not fit within our society, right? So the way that we mitigate that is we essentially take the good Muslims, the ones that believe in the American dream, that believe in peaceful Islam, non-radicalized, and we let them build from it within. So I'm not going to say who I was talking to earlier, but, I kind of said to him, and we kind of had this conversation, and I said, here's the deal, man. I was like, essentially what we need to do is we need to set boundaries. We need to let them assimilate, and we need to, but we need to direct them into proper assimilation. But Muslims, anytime you push back on them because of the Quran, you know,
Yep.
they kind of push back against you, and that's what causes the radicalization. But if we can get them to rebuild from within a healthy American dream and a Texas first mentality, then that's the way we need to do that. And we've got to do it with unification rather than the eradication, which is going to cause more radicals. And we can't be using this, you know, Islamophobic fucking speech. So is that what you're trying to say? Because I think that's where you're trying to go.
Yes, and it's the same. It's along those lines, because when you start pushing against someone, you start venalizing them. They have no back. When you're pushing someone into a corner, they're going to get violent.
Yes.
And that's what's
Yes.
happening. As you're pushing against people, saying you're evil, you're bad, and now you're trying to come after them, their way of life. The way I phrase it, I'm gonna phrase it to y'all. Is someone right now is like, okay, because you're a Christian, now we're going to we want to kill you. Now we want to eradicate everything about your doing. We want to burn your church down. We want to do everything that you're saying. What are you going to do as a parent, as a veteran? If that's you and someone's going to come against your house, are you just going to sit there and take it?
I'm going to be a martyr.
No,
Just
exactly.
like Islamists are.
Yes, you're going to go and do that. Thing is, there are radicals and of an agenda. Like we're seeing, I'm hearing about, someone asked me today about, I think it was a Seventh Mountain movement. I don't think Rusty knows what that is.
I haven't heard that. Go for it.
So Seventh Mountain movement is, I'm still learning more about it because it's got brought up today. But for what I'm learning is it's another type of an agenda to, it's very similar to what they're accusing Islam of doing, but for Zionism. It's a very similar type of rhetoric for what I'm hearing. So again, you're looking at multiple agendas and ideologies, and that all these movements are trying to come into Texas. And it's like, look, we can't say one group of people across the board is bad. We need to start looking for that middle ground, and it's assimilate to Texas. Start teaching them what Texas is. I was on a radio show down in Houston a few months ago, and it was being streamed out to India, freaking India. And it was to a large India population around the Houston community. So we have large populations of other people who love Texas, who love America. But if you're trying to say we're only Christian, yes, we are built on Judeo-biblical Christian values. That's where I get the majority of my beliefs and policies from. At the same time, if you're trying to say we have a separation of church and state, but if you're trying to say that we have religious freedoms and liberties, then that means it's across the board. Unless you alter it and say only one. And if you say only one, where are we going to? So those are tough conversations that we have to have. Because as it stands, we are primarily a Christian nation, but we don't have a set religion here. But if you say we want to get rid of Islam, we want to get rid of, I heard one person say, one of the other candidates for lieutenant governor, that he wants to create a trail of tears for the Jews here in Texas, and that he looks up to Adolf Hitler. Go look at his Facebook. This is what he says. I was in an interview with him last week or a week or so ago.
What's his name?
Asala Vorshner.
Sala Vorshner.
Yeah, Esala something. Like Vorshner is like a W-U-E-R. I don't know how to spell it. But he was trying to call Ted Cruz a traitor, and that he should be put to death because of it. This is what he's been saying. But
so the Seventh Mountain movement. So I'm thinking, and I think that you misspoke on it. It's not Seventh Mountain movement that was for the Jews. Seventh Mountain was that Christian movement. And I believe it was in like the 60s or 70s that started. It was the evangelical movement. Now, I know it's been hijacked and corrupted a little bit, but there's another movement that is the Zionist movement. I can't think of what it's called. And I hate you to put the Seventh Mountain, because I know you're not right, but I know what you're trying to say, because you hit me off guard with it at first. And I knew where you were leaning, and I'm trying to think of what it is off the top of my head.
Again, I said that was brought up today. I'm still trying to learn more about it. But
yeah, I can't remember what it was. So the Seventh Mountain movement, that was an evangelical movement, but there is a Zionist movement, and it sounds a lot like that. And I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. Hold on, I may be wrong.
Odds are he's wrong. Let's just get that right.
Seventh Mountain Mandate is an evangelical dominionist movement aiming to influence 7 key pillars of society: family, religion, education, government, media, arts, and business, to align conservative Christian values. Founded in 1975 by Bill Bright and Lauren Cunningham, and encouraging believers to reclaim these mountains for God. So that is the Seventh Mountain one. But I know what you're talking about. There is that Zionist movement, and I can't think of what it is off the top of my head.
Okay, so I found his Facebook page or his X page, and he has a picture with Hot Wheels.
Is it a cool Hot Wheels?
Oh, you know who it is.
Abbott, dumbass.
Oh, that Hot Wheels. Oh, he's not Hot Wheels. He's Decrepit Wheels.
Man, dude, this is because the first thing when I searched it was like controversial statements, and it comes up of doesn't believe in the Holocaust and Jew and all this stuff about Jews and Hitler, and I was like, oh shit.
That's the other guy running for lieutenant governor. So he's on a vendetta. But the whole point I'm trying to make with that is you hear these different movements and radicalization and different things. And it's trying to sort through what they are. But if we try to say one set group is evil and we need to eradicate, we need to remove them all, like the Hispanics or the illegals. It's like deport them all. They're all bad. No, not
We need
all
to pass
bad.
immigration. Yeah.
Exactly. We need to have an immigration path. If you are a good citizen, you have been here. Because hell, I know quite a few people who don't have citizenship who behave better than citizens.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That know our history better than citizens.
Like they participate, they do more. And it's like,
Yeah.
I know quite a few people like down the road from me who are complete shitbags.
Mm-hmm.
They're more uncouth, but they're a citizen. So we have to be able to judge the merit just because you don't have that or don't have the funds to do so. Let's streamline it. But we do need to be selective with our process of who comes into America, who comes into Texas. We do need to set that in place. Hey, close the border. Let's create a checkpoint. Let's create it to where you are properly vetted. So we're not for sale. We're going to close that. And that's where I would work with the governor, primarily praying for Doc Chambers for this, to where, look, we're going to put policies into place to where we put this lock on. We evaluate what is going on from a higher level and to do what's best for Texas. Because, again, if we have individuals who are good citizens or who are good people here, that they want the path to citizenship, I think it's complete garbage that they need to pay tens of thousands of dollars to try to navigate how to become citizens, and they still get screwed over. I have a problem with that because I've worked with individuals who either are on DACA, they have their green card, or they're illegals. I've been around them, and I've seen the other side to it. And again, you just can't say everybody's evil. They're all bad.
Yeah.
There is a middle ground here. So
100%.
It's creating those types of policies and working with other individuals who have that mentality. And when you hear some of this rhetoric, it's terrifying. And it's like, I see with Doc, he is more down to earth and he evaluates things as a whole. It's not just, oh my gosh, here's
at a tactical standpoint from a bigger picture.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Correct. It's not reactionary. When there's an action, there's a reason behind it. And if it's a very fast action, that means there's an imminent threat or there was more information at play that's already been taken in before something happens. This is the type of mentality that we must have. We must have the operator and the logistic style mentality to come back in. And that's what we're missing. We have the sellouts who care more about their money. They care more about the time that they're in power and the photo ops, not the ones to go on the boots on the ground. They don't do that. Truly, I pray that Doc and I get it because that's going to be fun as hell. It's going to be tiring. It's going to be a lot of work, but I think it'd be more fun.
Okay, so if you are elected, you as support for whomever the governor is, what are you going to do? Yeah, preferably Doc, in our stance, but in general, what are you going to do to facilitate our governor, so our state's commander in chief, agendas, policies, procedures? What is your, if the governor comes to you and says, this is what I want to accomplish, what are you going to do?
So I want to have a sit down conversation with the governor, lieutenant governor, myself, and the speaker of the house to all create and come up with one unified vision. Because if the governor has his priorities, I have something, and then the speaker has their own, we're at a mismatch. So what we need to do is have one set type of mentality and to come together and to start working on that. So we can create a coalition of individuals who are willing to fight and to meet that mission with boots on the ground, not just in theory. And I preferably to have veterans and people with experience who will die for this country and who have made the ultimate.
So you're talking about building committees. You're talking about
building
putting committees together. Okay.
Correct.
So you said coalition, and that's what kind of threw me off. Okay. No, that's great. That's great. So are you looking at more of a grassroots style, up, or, how are, talk to me about it a little bit.
I want to do a full grassroots style where we have grassroots leaders. We have individuals who are boots on the ground. Because one thing that I'm seeing is a lot of swamp creatures come out and they want to latch on. I referenced President Trump. His first campaign, when he first won presidency, he was surrounded by a lot of infiltrators, a lot of liars and cheats.
Yes.
And they backstabbed him big time. We saw his vice president, Mike Pence, do the exact same thing. That he started to turn on the president, he caused a problem. So my job is, in essence, the vice president of Texas. So it's to protect and defend and to support the governor. And the governor needs a strong lieutenant governor who's going to have his back. And to create that grassroots coalition of individuals who are of that same caliber to say, all right, here I am, F around, you're going to find out that you don't mess with Texas. You don't mess with us. That you can't be bought. You can't be sold. You can't be influenced. And you're willing to give it all. See, that's the type of grassroots coalition of good Texans, not good old Texans, but good Texas culture mentality of that come and take it to say, we know it's right. We're going to do the research. And if it comes back that somebody's a problem or this is a solution, no matter how uncomfortable it is or how unsavory it is, we must do that. And that's where, for me, my role would be to support the governor's agenda. And looking at a lot of Doc Chambers' agenda, we have pretty much the same. There might be a few nuances here and there, but there's a lot of similarities. And because I've already been a fire lieutenant, I've already served in the role of second. I've already served as an independent operator with a chief and battalion chiefs to say, hey, go out, conquer, and report back. And I will be that boots on the ground. That's what, to me, the true lieutenant is.
So in the event that you and whomever our governor is disagrees on a path, what is your solution? What are you going to do next whenever you come up and you have that issue and you say, look, I don't think this is right, either constitutionally or it's not good for the state or the people won't like it, or constituents are going to be way against this. This is not what we're standing here for. What is your solution going to be then?
Well, first and foremost, we have to have the conversation. You just can't shy away from it. You must address it head on, because if you don't, there's an issue with that. That's just weakness for one.
You can't just shut down whenever you feel
threatened or bullied.
Yeah. Okay.
You can't shut down if you're intimidated or bullied. But you have to be able to trust that person's judgment and say, look, I'm going to come to you no matter how uncomfortable this is. And let's have a real conversation right here, right now. And I'm going to say this, because you hit on this, Dustin. If an individual, like let's say the governor, tries to do something unconstitutional and that is not for the benefit of Texas, this is where I will have a fight. And I will go against the governor in that aspect, because we're going against the Constitution. Our founding documents is say what we're supposed to do, what not to do. And if you're going against that, you are in direct violation. And to me, you are violating the oath of office and the laws of land. So
Absolutely.
That means you are in direct violation. And that means it needs to get brought out and not hidden. And I don't believe Doc Chambers would go against that. Now, if somebody else is reelected and I'm his second, there will be challenges. I will tell you that, because there must be. Again, I believe we need to put a checks and balance with every bill, every official, to say, one, we have term limits, but two, let's verify this with the state constitution and the federal constitution. And if it varies and you are going directly against that with your policy, we need to create what that penalty will look like.
Yeah, absolutely. What about Colony Ridge, Plum Grove, all that good stuff? What is your solution? What is your thought process on mitigating the illegal infiltration of those communities, as well as the amount of automatic weapons that are throughout those communities, how dangerous they are, the drugs that are coming out of it, and the fact that the developers have donated over $1.5 million
$1.5 million.
towards Abbott's electoral camp.
Well, it shows you where he lies. And
Agree.
I'm going to say it this way. We talked earlier about the First Amendment being religious freedoms and expressions.
Mhm.
If you're having a building that's overlooking military or police agencies training and operations, and you're having massive amounts of arms, that raises a red flag. If you have rhetoric to take over the country, to attack law enforcement, there should be a red flag with that. And
Mhm.
you need to have laws and rules in place to where that doesn't happen. So, and this is where I say for foreign influence, we shouldn't be getting any type of foreign influence from any organization in our government. And I'm going to name out APAC as one. So if you have a tie to a foreign organization, I don't believe foreign organizations should be donating to American charities or groups.
Yeah,
I'm
and
just gonna
I
throw that out there.
look. Me and Rusty have talked a lot about it. I think that, yeah, and Rusty agrees that APAC should have to register as a foreign operative. And, the way that APAC got around it was in what year was that, Rusty? 62 or
I can't
something?
remember, but the way they get around it currently, like with the legal gray area, is because everyone from the top of like the APAC head of the snake all the way down is quote unquote technically an American citizen. So that's
Yeah.
how they get
And,
around it, even though they're
and
advocating for a foreign nation's
yeah.
interest.
And they originally had a different name. So they had a different name, and then the new laws went into place on where they would have had
So
to register.
they changed their
So,
name and they changed how they set up just to keep getting around
yeah.
it.
So I don't know if you're aware of that, but that is actually the background on APAC. But yeah, we completely agree with you. Look, a governor, a lieutenant governor, they don't need to be involved in the World Economic Forum. They don't need to be involved in anything overseas. They need to be right here in our motherfucking state, boots on the ground, making shit better for every citizen, every Texan out there on my street, your street, his street, everywhere else. For veterans, we've got too many homeless veterans. We've got, the mental health crisis. We've got, impoverished individuals. We need welfare reform. We need child custody and child support reform. Like, there's so much out there that we need to reform that, you're spot on. Like, when you got that foreign influence that puts you overseas, how much can they be, essentially governing our state if they're in Europe or Saudi Arabia or Iran, or I'm sorry, fucking
Israel?
no, Israel, or no, not that, them cunts. I don't even want to say that cunts. Ukraine, whenever these motherfuckers are everywhere else but here. Or no, here, I'll throw this one out. This one will touch close to home. If they put wheelchair access in India for them motherfuckers to go fucking speak to their leadership, it's absolute fucking dog shit. And our leadership needs to be here. And I appreciate you specifying that you don't want that foreign intervention.
No, and you're right. We shouldn't be at the World Economic Forum. We shouldn't be at these places.
It's
Because,
stupid.
especially as a lieutenant governor, I get going on vacation. I get traveling here and there because I get that to a point. But
What about going to
you're-
Mexico whenever we've got the grids shutting down because of a freeze? How do you feel about that? Should you travel then?
if you're the governor, lieutenant governor, no.
What
If
about a
you're Ted
state
fucking
senator?
Cruz?
He's not going to be
So-
able to do shit anyways.
Yeah.
He's
But
a fucking turd.
so real quick, 1950s, it was the American Zionist Council, AZC.
Yeah.
And it got heat from the Justice Department for taking millions from Israel's Jewish agency, which was like a quasi-government body. But in 1962, the feds ordered the American Zionist Council to register under FARA. So what happened, what they did to avoid that is APAC split off in 1963 as a separate nonprofit. And that's when they started to make up of only American citizens, but American Jewish citizens to get around the whole, well, there's no foreign citizens in this council that would give the bigger thing of like, well, you have to register as a foreign agent because you guys are foreign citizens. Well, no, these are technically American citizens. So even though they advocate on another country's behalf, that's how they've been able to get around it with the legal gray area. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But APAC definitely. And then Israel Heritage Foundation. I learned some interesting stuff about that today. We'll talk about another time. But yeah, it's just ridiculous. The type of bullshit that they try to put on any elected official, but especially ours. Um, yeah, it's just
Rusty,
stupid.
Rusty, you got any questions or anything you want to throw out there, just in general?
No, I think it's good.
Anything else you want to say? I'm about to have to wrap up. I got another event I got to get to. Give you your time to say what you want to say. Tell the people why you're the best choice. Essentially, if you want to break down, just say everything you want to platform, and here's your time to shine. Yeah, go ahead, shoot.
So I'm Timothy Mabry, and I am the only native Texan who is running in this race. I'm a husband and I'm a father of 2 toddlers. Every policy that I have to put into place, I have to live with. We put pen to paper today that my little girl who's 3, my first session, the bills that we put into place, her first school year that she'll be able to be in school, which will be kindergarten, will go into effect her first school year. So this is a personal fight for us as our family. We want to grow our family, but we're looking at everything that's happening. So we are true boots on the ground and the trenches. We are the everyday Texans. We are the everyday Americans who are fighting for this state. And that's one of the reasons why I'm for the regulation of hemp products, or you can call it THC, marijuana, however you want to call it. I'm for the regulation and the decriminalization of it, because I've seen firsthand at how those products can help you versus big pharma's garbage. I have many stories from my personal life and from other people that I know who have used that. So let's get rid of the criminalization of it. Let's retrodate that back. If you have a minor drug charge, well, get rid of that. You're free to go. Get you out of the jail, expunge that from your record. Let's go. And let's grow the industry, because we can make over 40,000 different products on industrial hemp. It's way more effective. It's better for the environment. It can pull out the PFAS and other things from the soil. It is great for crop rotations. There are so many more benefits to that than other crops. And we can be an agricultural hub. And what most people don't know is that under the 2018 Farm Bill, President Trump had a mandate for China and other countries to buy industrial hemp from us in bulk. But we are not producing enough in the United States to have that export. If we switch that around, we are able to have that export and drastically increase that industry. But also, if we were to criminalize it and do what our current lieutenant governor wants, that's going to be a negative impact right off the gate of $1.3 billion. That's not including the psychological and how much it's going to cost us to put these people back into jail. So that's one of my stances. The other thing is I want to see education reform. I talked about my children about to go to school. I have seen that SB2, which is a school voucher program, is a scam. It is a bold-faced lie by our current administration to make money, that we must be good stewards of our tax dollars. And the fact that they want to take our tax dollars and put it to private industry for education, that is theft. That is for profit. I am not okay with that. We need to revamp the accountability system in our educational schools so that we're able to get the better deals, that we are able to be more effective with every single dollar and be good stewards of that. This is how we're going to have to be able to do good education on our kids. We do need to have protections in place from certain ideologies and indoctrination. Like, I don't personally want to see my kids going through sexual classes while they're in school. That's something that we're supposed to teach as adults. That should not be left up to a teacher, and the curriculum should not be hidden. So I'm calling for a transparency in all government contracts, all school contracts. I'm also calling for accountability within our government. Right now, Governor Abbott has no negotiation contracts. You have these contracts that come up every few years, and when they come up, you're locked in. We need to reevaluate and renegotiate the contracts constantly to get the better deal, because we are spending way too much excess on programs that, one, don't matter, but two, we're getting overcharged on stuff. So we must rein this in and start bringing common sense back into our country, back into Texas, and then to implement a Texas first mentality, not America first, not Israel first, not Mexico first, Texas first and foremost. To say our allegiance is to here, that we will not send any foreign aid to another country. We will not send money out to somebody else. We have to take care of our own. If we can't take care of our own here, then we should not be able to send it somewhere else. The other thing I will say we need to do is we need to start removing the ties from the federal government. Right now, every time that we go ask the federal government for something, they are wanting more and more restrictions on us. As I said earlier, I was telling my wife, we're like Pinocchio right now. We have strings attached to us. We're a puppet. So I'm trying to be more like the Pinocchio style of, hey, look, I have no strings on me. I may have a big nose, but there's no strings on me. You don't have me tied. And that's what we're supposed to have for our elected officials. And that's what I'm bringing back to Texas. True Texas governance by a true sixth-generation Texan who is raising the seventh generation. We must identify all negative agendas. We must bind together and to say, look, we are Texas first. We are going to secure this. And as the next lieutenant governor, I'm going to work with the governor. I pray it's Doc Chambers, because if it's anybody else, we're in trouble. And I'm going to have one hell of a fight in that office if it's Abbott. But if it's Doc Chambers, we're going to be able to fight together, arm in arm, because I've already been a lieutenant. I've already been a lieutenant in the fire department. I know what it is to lead under pressure, to push people together for a common cause when everyone's separated. This is what we need to do in the mentality of Texas. We need to unify. This is our Alamo moment because we are at war. I'm not saying we're declaring war. We are at war right here, right now. And the question I have for each and every one of you Texans who is listening to this podcast, are you going to nut up or are you going to shut up? One of the two, because this is the time. We know there's a fight. So quit your bitching, quit your complaining. And if you're a man, grab your balls out of your wife's purse, get out to vote, and step the fuck up. This is where we're at right now. There is no more sitting on your ass or sitting down with your thumb up your ass, release the hand off your dick, get to work, and start to save Texas. Because, come on, no one's going to come to save you. What, you think our government's going to come to save you? Hell no. You have to save yourself. You have to save your family and bind together with people like myself, Doc Chambers, Dustin, and Rusty, who say, I'm willing to stand up. I'm willing to take the arrows. Are you? Are you willing to do that for Texas? Are you willing to enact the Texas Independent, come and take it, or remember the Alamo slogans? Are you going to have that mentality? And if you do, get your ass out to vote, find the right person, support them, come alongside right here, right now, because Texas is on the line. And if you want to see it fall, get the hell out and go to California and let the real Texans do the work.
Where's a fucking brick wall? Because I need to run through one right now. Come on. No, I appreciate it. Man, you did great. A real fucking Texan for a real lieutenant governor. Yeah, man, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. We got a lot of information out. I know there's a lot more information that people are going to want to know. And we'll try to find it out in the future. You know, maybe we can do this again prior to the election. Everyone needs to get out and vote. Rusty, you got anything?
Nah, I appreciate you making the time for us, brother. Thank you a lot.
No, thank you for this.
Hey, and for all the listeners, you know, if you're in a mental health crisis, you feel like hurting yourself or someone else, go see someone, someone say something. If you're a victim of sexual abuse or you know of sexual abuse, say something. Go talk to a safe person. There's people out there to help you. Hey, I thank you. Thank everyone. And ready?
All right, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe. But never forget, Texas forever,
Texas
motherfucker.
forever.